It's Fernando Ruiz Art.
Hi everybody, and we are looking at the ultra top secret official Archie studio guides. Now, studio guides are, it's another word, you may have heard them called character sheets, turnarounds, model guides. It's all the same thing, and basically it's just artwork of the characters so that all the artists drawing the characters have something official and something similar to go by. So most of the artwork in here in this packet is done by the legendary Dan DeCarlo, who drew Archie for about 50 years. And Dan certainly set what we call the house style, which is what all artists, at least back when I was starting out, were encouraged to follow in order to make their Archies look like Archie. Nowadays things are a whole lot looser at Archie Comics, but back then they definitely encouraged thinking DeCarlo, looking at DeCarlo's work. So I dug this out, and here we see official. Now this is what we officially call a turnaround, which is where you show the character as if we're taking the figure of the character and turning it around. So we see the character in full figure, in profile, from the back, and then what we call a 3/4 view, which is where the character is neither straight on nor in profile, but somewhere in between. So, which is probably the most common of looks. Now, one thing to notice, and I'm talking about this today in response to a request by one of our subscribers who specifically requested that I talk about Archie body proportions. So that's what we're doing today. Now, in just about every proportion scale, and I do have a video on normal figure proportions, non-cartoony, more realistic figure proportions, and I will link to that in the comments below. So please check that out, and check that out in comparison to this one, where we are talking about a cartoonier, more animated, more exaggerated, more simplified version of a normal, regular human person. In both systems, whether we're talking about cartoony or realistic, when we talk about proportions, we use the head, the size of the head, as a unit of measurement. Now, notice here in this one, a note written by somebody, don't know who, but it says 6.5 heads tall. So Betty here would be 1, 2, 3 heads to the crotch area. So her whole torso, including her true head, would be within 3 heads tall. Then we have 3 more heads encompassing her legs and some of her feet, and then her feet come to a half a head point. So in total, they're going by 6.5 heads tall. I always kept it at 6 myself. 6.5 kind of may stretch out the figure a little bit. So 6 heads was plenty for me. On this sheet, we see the characters, how they compare in size to each other. And really, with the exception of Moose, who is larger, and Dilton, who is shorter, I kept most characters at that 6 head count. So here we see Archie, and we see him straight on from the front, from the back, in profile, and the 3/4 view. So we're gonna be drawing an Archie today, and I'm gonna draw him. I'm gonna draw a full figure, kind of in some action, and so like I said, he is going to be 6 heads tall, so about 1, 2, 3. This would be his whole torso, okay? It's about 6 heads. Make sure, you don't have to break out a ruler either to get this exact. You could just kind of eyeball it. It doesn't have to be super, super precise. I'm also cheating a little bit, indulging a little bit by going in with the face so soon. Normally what I like to do is lay out the whole body, but I just want this to look like Archie fairly fast for the sake of the video. So we got Archie. Now, really, when I draw the body on an Archie character, unless they have a really exaggerated cartoonish body like Mr. Weatherby, who's a big fat guy and kind of shaped like a fat bowling pin. Most of the time I'm really drawing the characters really with a fairly realistic body. I'm not really distorting the body, other than I'm keeping things simple. I'm not going to go in and lay down a whole lot of anatomy. I'm not going in with laying out a lot of muscles and this and that. I'm just keeping it simple. I'm just keeping the body down to cylinders and spheres. The other thing I am doing is I'm going to exaggerate his pose just to give him a more animated feel. So by exaggerating, I'm just kind of pushing the line. So pushing the curve of his spine, pushing, if he's pumping his arms as he's running, he's really going to be pumping. His knees are going to be higher. This leg is going to get pulled back more. Now that I've got his body down, I could start to suggest some details, some clothing details. Notice how soft I'm keeping the shapes of his body. And by soft, I mean I'm not using like a rigid cube for the torso. There aren't any hard straight lines with his body. It's all soft curves. It's all kind of rubbery, flexible shapes, and that keeps him looking more animated and cartoonier and hopefully funnier. Again, I like to really bounce around the entirety of the figure. I don't like to, just work on a hand or a face. Normally, I'm bouncing around a lot more than I do here. Sometimes I just get caught up in explaining as I'm drawing, so I have to hover on things and nurse them maybe a little bit more than I normally would. As with most figures, and this isn't going to be literally, but you want to draw the figure almost as though he were naked. You don't want to go in and start drawing the folds and the clothes and the details of the clothes until you have a body down. And then you could add the clothing over the body. And that'll just make the clothing rest on the body all the more naturally. So this leg, I think, is coming out a little too far. So I'll just nuke it. Never be afraid to redraw something. Because the more you draw it, hopefully the better you get at it. So if nothing else, I get practice on drawing legs. And this foot, we'll see it from the underside. few little sneaker details. I don't draw Archie all that regularly anymore, so sometimes it feels very familiar when I start to draw him like this. I still draw him on private commissions and sketches for videos like this, and every now and then I get a call to do a story by one of the CEOs at Archie Comics. But that's very few and far between these days. They don't do much classic stuff anymore, which is a shame, because that's really the Archie everybody prefers. Okay, so that is pretty much Archie. Give him some Chuck Taylor sneakers, because that seems very Archie. Plus, I wear them all the time myself. So, that is Archie. I may do another video just doing the girls' bodies, which is slightly different aside from the obvious anatomy differences. But it's the girls are sort of more of a realistic but simplified realism, more of a realistic body. You don't do as much distorting with the female characters. So there we have nice active Archie body in action. And that's how we do it. Keep it simple, as always. Keep it simple. Don't go nuts with a whole lot of anatomical detail, because he's a cartoon. And always keep in mind that head count. Always keep in mind the number of heads tall that he is, and be mindful. Are you making the head too big? Are you making the head too small compared to the body? I know initially when I first started at Archie, the proportions, because I wasn't yet used to drawing the character, the proportions took some getting used to. So initially I would be prone to drawing some long figures. And then when I realized I was drawing them too long, I overcompensated and I started drawing very short figures. So it's something you just have to get used to, much like everything else with drawing. You get better at it the more you do it. All right, so that is drawing Archie full figure in a nutshell. So if you guys have any questions about this, please leave them in the comments section below, as always. Any comments, feedback, suggestions for other videos, I'm always interested in those. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, please click like and share, and come back for the next video. Okay? Until then, keep drawing, everybody. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.